What's up, guys? Geek Scapegoat here, and I'm here coming at you with a video that I'm going to be calling the Do's and Do Nots of Barrier Statues. So, I figured since this deck's finally starting to catch on, there are people that are topping regionals with it. I just heard about it. You know, this guy topped this event, and this guy got like top 8, and then you hear about it being played in Japan. I figured since people are finally giving this deck not as much respect as it deserves, but they're starting to give the deck respect. I figured I would contribute and throw my 2 cents in there. Talk about some things I don't like about people's deck lists, you know, and kind of the things I wish that they would change about their lists, because there are some cards that people play. And granted, you know, they top those events with those specific lists, so good for them. But I feel like their list can be improved upon. I think a lot of people have these misconceptions about the deck, saying that certain cards are good when they're not, etc. And I've spoken to somebody who's played this deck off and on for almost 3 years. I feel like I have the right to say a little bit about it. And plus, like, yeah, okay, and another quick thing before I get into the video is that I apologize for the inactivity, you guys. I'm back at home visiting family. You know, we got basically 2 weeks off of school, so I decided to basically make the most of it, and I'm visiting friends and stuff like that, so that's why I haven't been posting too much, and then I had some problems, and I got sick, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so let's get into the video. So first for the dues, and basically this is going to be our center line. This is going to be our this is going to mark that, you know, this is going to be the line that we draw. So first for the dues, obviously you got to play Fossil Dyna. You play 3 of it, it's staple. There are people that literally have run 2 of this card or 1 of this card in the deck, and those people need to get punched. So you play 3. Then obviously you're playing barrier statues, so you play other copies of barrier statues. I put Earth, Water, and Fire right here. These are the ones I put here because these are the best ones right now. You know, there's some people that like fire over water. There's some people that like water over fire. I personally like water over fire, but it doesn't matter. You know, it's player preference, really. They both basically have the same effect. You know, if you're more comfortable against the Mermail matchup, play water. If you're more comfortable against the Infernoid matchup, which is kind of crazy if you ask me, because Infernoid's it's a good matchup if you have a statue or a Dyna in play. But nonetheless, those are the ones you play right now. You know. So then we got Moon Mirror Shield, which is staple. There's some people that don't like this card. They say, oh, well, like, I had a sub message me a couple days ago that said, quote, all it does is help in battle. And I kind of laughed at that comment because, like, look, Moon Mirror Shield makes your monster indestructible in battle. That is half the battle right there. You have battle and card effects, okay? This handles one of it, and it's a continuous, you know, it's an equipped card. It's continuous. Every single attack in every single battle phase, you know, it makes that monster impervious from being destroyed. So if you have Moon Mirror Shield plus Fossil Dyna plus, let's say, some kind of anti-destruction card or a bribe or something like that, like, you win the game, basically. So Moon Mirror Shield, staple. Duality, pretty obvious, staple. Card of Demise. I've said this to a number of people. Card of Demise is probably the worst card in the deck. Like, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the way it works for me, but it is so win more so much. Like, here's the thing. In Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, once you break somebody's board, very few decks are going to be able to get that advantage back. I believe Barrier Statues are not one of those decks. I feel like Barrier Statues can get that advantage back, but there are a lot of decks, really, that it's basically, once you take down their opening line, they really don't, they have a bunch of subpar plays they can make after, and eventually you're going to win. I feel like the game is decided within the first 2 turns much more often than not, you know? So, Demise, like, drawing it, like, yeah, okay, you open 4 traps in a card of Demise, you say your 4 traps, play card of Demise, and then you draw, like, Fossil Dyna, Moon Mirror Shield, and something else, like, yeah, okay, great, but, you know, much more often than not, I feel the cards really win more, but, you know, it is what it is. It's a good card. I'm just saying it's not necessary in this deck. You could very easily play the deck without it. I've said that a million times. I would play, to me, you should play 7 barrier statues. 7 or 8. Like, to me, you don't go above 8, but what do I know? So, you would play, if you take a card of, your 3 copies of Card of Demise, I'd play an 8th statue. Like, again, to me, 8 is your max. Maybe you can play 9 if you want. I wouldn't. You'd play an 8th barrier statue, let's say like a 3rd Phantom Knight Wings and like a 3rd copy of like a Mirror Force or something like that. You know what I mean? So it all depends. Then we got the Phantom Knight Sword and the Phantom Knight Wings. There are people that don't play these cards, and I don't get it. They're Forbidden Lances, and they increase attack. Phantom Knight Sword increases by 800 permanently. It's an equipped card, but yeah, it prevents it from being destroyed by battle or by card effect. So does Wings. They prevent it from being destroyed by card effect or by battle. And they increase attack. You need these goddamn cards. Like, at worst, at the absolute worst, the worst thing, the least amount that they can do is your opponent Raigekis you and you chain Sword or Wings and it acts as a Forbidden Lance. Now, the best it can do is you can have 3 swords equipped to a Vasseldyne and basically make it say, bitch, come at me. You know what I mean? Like, you need Sword and Wings. They're absolutely staple. They're 10 cents a piece, basically. Actually, I think Sword went up a little bit, but nothing ridiculous. So, you need these cards. And the last staple I put on here is Dark Bribe. I know a lot of people don't like how much I talk about Dark Bribe, but Bribe is staple. Unless there is a drastic shift of the format. This card counters Raigeki. It counters Twin Twister. It counters Solemn Warning, counters Compulse, counters Book of Moon, counters Mirror Forces, counters, any kind of card that will stop your plays, any kind of card that will break your board, any card that will win your opponent the game, basically. In spell and trap form, Dark Bribe says no to it. The one draw, and I've said it a million times, and I know a lot of my subscribers that already like Dark Bribe or have tried it and have admitted that it's a good card are sick of me saying this, but I'm going to keep saying it until people acknowledge that this is a good card. I'm tired of hearing the same bullshit, so I'm going to say it again. If you're bribing a card, it is going to be a card that is either going to break your board or is going to put your opponent too far ahead for you to keep up. So if you activate Dark Bribe, your opponent is already oh no, that Twin Twister is going to break my field, and then they're going to beat me. Okay, I'm going to Dark Bribe that. And if they top deck another Twin Twister, they top deck Raigeki, then great. For one, they were going to draw the card next turn anyway, and secondly, you were already bribing a card that was going to kill you anyway. So it's like, oh, your bribe gave me the out that I needed. Fantastic, and if I didn't bribe it, you were still going to win. So, Bribe is staple, fantastic card. I've talked to so many players, and I have pretty much every player that I've convinced to try Dark Bribe has loved it and has come back to me saying, Gage, this card's broken. Nick Giles, Slim, so many of my friends, so many people that I've talked to, they love Bribe now. It's such a fantastic card. You need to play it in most stun decks, especially Barrier Statues. Because Moon Mirror Shield plus Dyna or Statue plus Bribe is usually game. So that's it for the dues, and there's some honorable mentions, like a couple copies of a Mirror Force, but those can change depending on the format. So we'll go to the do nots. The do nots. First of all, Max C. I understand some people like Max C in the deck. I get it. I really do. Max C is a card, though, that you're going to hear this a lot throughout the do nots. Maxi is a card that is good when you have no barrier statues. When your deck bricks, essentially, and you draw Maxi first turn, it's great. But the second you summon a Dyna, the second you summon a statue, the card is absolutely worthless. You need to have cards that are good at pretty much all points of the game. That's why you typically only play 2 Phantom Knight Wings, because it's not always the best. Like, if your opponent has a big monster and you have a statue in play with nothing equipped to it and you top deck Phantom Knight Wings, yeah, it's not the best. But it's typically worth playing just because of Raigeki, Dark Hole, all that shit. So Maxi makes bad hands good and good hands, makes bad hands good first turn and makes good hands subpar, and I just don't like that. Maxi, don't play it. Then we got Necro Valley. Shout out to the keepers, because as I always say, they will forever be my favorite deck. Of all time, it's not even close. So, Necro Valley. You would think, oh, Gage must advocate playing Necro Valley in Barrier Statues. No, not for a second. Here's the reason why. Because Necro Valley is a card that doesn't do anything to contribute to the Barrier Statue win condition, which is stop your opponent from special summoning and beat the shit out of them with a bunch of monsters. You know what I mean? Necro Valley contributes nothing to that. The typical cards, like let's say in the meta right now, that Necro Valley would stop. Necro Valley would stop, let's say, Sir, it would stop Dante, it would stop Gospel of Revival, it would stop Silver's Cry, it would stop a lot of cards like that Sack Charge. Almost all of them, the barrier statue strategy, which is just summon a statue, prevent your opponent from special summoning, and lock him out. Like, your opponent already can't do all of that, you know what I mean? A lot of people have these common misconceptions about lockdown decks. A lot of people are like, oh, like I remember when I made my Tyrant's Tirade lockdown profile, a couple months back when I was first getting back into making videos. Like a guy was like, hey, you should take one of the Reckless Greeds out of your deck and replace it with a copy of Necro Valley. Like, that doesn't, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. You need cards that work with your strategy, not other random cards that happen to be good against the meta. You know what I mean? And I've heard from at least 2 barrier statue players that have topped that said, yeah, I wouldn't run Necro Valley again. It didn't do anything for me. So Necro Valley, not a good call in this deck. The Seal of Orichalcos, it's a much better call than Necro Valley, like by a country mile, but it's still not a card that I would play in this deck. I used to play Necro Valley. No, I'm sorry. I used to play Seal of Orichalcos in my barrier statue decks, 2-3 years ago. Now, the problem with that, and comparing it to today, back when I played barrier statues and I ran the Seal of Orichalcos, Moon Mirror Shield did not exist. Phantom Knight Sword did not exist. Phantom Knight Wings did not exist. Like, all these really good, these backbones of the deck did not exist. So you had to kind of improvise. You had to play cards like Trap Hole or D Prison or the Seal of Orichalcos. The deck has evolved so much since then. Before barrier statues were like basically their own anti-meta deck. You would play Kaikus, you would play Thunder Kings, you would play these other slow, stunnish anti-meta cards. You'd play Kaiku if you wanted to, depending on the format. Your Grand Moles, your Mist Valley Falcons, you know what I mean? And the deck kind of warped into this deck where you still played a couple techs. I played Mist Valley Falcon for the longest time as extra, beatdown material. But again, Sword, Wings, Moon Mirror Shield, these cards didn't exist yet. So... actually, I think Moon Mirror Shield existed back in like 2014, 15. But, the majority of these cards didn't exist yet, So Orichalcos was good back then. But here's the reason why I don't play Orichalcos now. Again, I have better cards to play, like Sword, Wings, Moon Mirror Shield, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing, and here's what a lot of people fail to realize with Seal of Orichalcos. The Seal of Orichalcos is really good when you have a statue and back row. But when you have a statue in back row, or you have Dinah in back row, or whatever, your hand's already good. You know what I mean? It's like playing Summoner Monk and Harpies. You know what I mean? Summoner Monk and Harpies is good when you have like Hysteric Sign, for example. But when you have Hysteric Sign and back row and all that stuff already, your hand's already good. So a card like Seal of Orichalcos is good when your board is already set up. And then there are those times where you'll top deck Orichalcos without a monster, and it's just garbage. So the Seal of Orichalcos makes good hands better and bad hands much worse. And that's just not a good way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Terraforming goes along with those lines. Terraforming, like, I've played, like, one Orichalcos, one Terraforming in, like, my Falcon anti-meta deck, however many, like a year ago, over a year ago. If anybody remembers that deck, shout out to you, because you're a real MVP, But, like, I played it back then, but I could afford to play it back then. You cannot really afford to brick with barrier statues, because, like I said, especially in today's meta, the game is essentially decided within the first 2 turns. So you need to make sure your openings are consistent as possible. Like, one guy he got, like, top 32, I think. He played Necro Valley, Orichalcos, and 2 Terraformings. You know what I mean? His deck was built, very poorly. And he was like, oh, I bricked against Cosmo, and then this happened, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you picture opening Orichalcos, Necro Valley, like, a Terraforming, and, like, 2 trap cards, and no Dinahs or statues? Like, that is horrible, So, I would not play any kind of field spells. At least right now, they're just not good calls, if you ask me. So then we got 2 Mirror Forces here. Storming Mirror Force. I hate Storming Mirror Force. In almost any deck you can think of, I hate Storming Mirror Force. I think in the majority, not all, but I think in the majority of decks, Storming Mirror Force is absolute trash. Like, I would play Sandstorm over Storming in almost any deck that I can think of. I just feel it's better and it's much more versatile. Because here's the thing. If you're playing against, let's say, Pendulums, and you go Storming Mirror Force, or regular Mirror Force, you know what I mean? Not so much in this deck, but let's say, hypothetically, in, like, another deck that doesn't play Fossil Dynamo Statues. You know, Mirror Force and Storming serve the same purpose, and they're both trash unless your opponent has Exceeded or Fusion Summoned, you know what I mean? Storming is not good in this deck. In Barrier Statues, it's just not a good call. Because unless your opponent exceeds, which your deck locks out, your entire deck essentially, you know, stops special summons, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. So if you play Storming Mirror Force, all the shit's coming back to their hand, and basically all you did was just delay it a turn. You still haven't answered the problem, you know what I mean? If you go Storming over, you know, like, let's say a 3-monster board, they still have those 3 monsters. They're going to get their shit back 100% of the time, you know, unless they exceeded, you know what I mean? So, or fusioned or whatever. So, Storming just not a good call. I would play regular Mirror Force, and I would play Sandstorm over that in a heartbeat. I'm not really a fan of Blazing, but I can understand if you want to play it. I explained more about the whole Blazing Mirror Force thing in the comment section and in the video that I did on Barrier Statues back in August. Drowning Mirror Force, to quote George Carlin's tone, holy shit. Did you know that there are people, I'm just kidding by the way, did you know there are people that actually play Drowning Mirror Force in Barrier Statues? A 1-monster deck, a deck that is completely reliant on having at least 1 monster in play, plays Drowning Mirror Force. Drowning Mirror Force is a good idea in Garden Beat. Drowning Mirror Force is a good idea in Clee Stun. Drowning Mirror Force is not a good idea in something like Boojins. Like, a deck that needs to have at least 1 monster in play pretty much at all times, playing a card that says you can only activate this when you don't have any monsters in play. I shouldn't need to explain how fucking stupid that is, but some people don't seem to understand that. Wiretap, Magic Drain, Starlight Road, Huge Revolution. Ah! I put these at the tail end because I already talked about Dark Bribe. Dark Bribe staple, Wiretap bad. Wiretap is trash. It has been trash in every format it's been legal, except in hat format, and I still played bribes, and I checked in chalices to stop whenever people flip Sanctum on me. Like, Wiretap is just... I would play 7 tools before I even thought of playing Wiretap, because Wiretap does not... It's not versatile, it doesn't stop spell cards, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't actually get rid of the problem, it just delays the problem. You know what I mean? Like... And I don't play 7 tools. I think that card is Garbaggio as well. Like I said, I think Bribe is a superior card, and I have explained why a million times, including at least twice in this video. So, Magic Drain's not bad, but if they're going to break your board, I don't think they're going to care about pitching an extra spell card. You know what I mean? Unless you get lucky, and your opponent doesn't have that extra spell card, but you're rolling a dice and chancing your opponent not having another spell card. So, not a good idea. Starlight Road, obvious. You can't fucking special as Stardust. Why the fuck could you play it? Unless you play the Wind statue, but even in that case, why the fuck wouldn't you just run Huge Revo? Because Huge Revo is more versatile than Starlight. You know, the entire reason why people play Starlight over Huge Revo is because you get to special Stardust. If you can't special summon Stardust, then there's no goddamn point. Huge Revolution is over. Really good card, but, you know, it stops Darkhold, stops Regeki, stops Twin Twister, stops all the good stuff, stops Breaksword, actually. So it's not a bad side card. I could almost understand you side decking it. But again, it's not Dark Bribe. It's not as versatile as Dark Bribe. You need to play the card. You need to play Huge Revo. Or excuse me, you need to play, god damn it. You need to play Dark Bribe. If you want to play Huge Revo, I understand, but Bribe is better. So, that's the do's and do nots. I think I got them all. Let's talk about some side deck stuff. First, Banisher. I think Banisher is pretty much staple in the side deck. It's really good against graveyard decks. Sometimes graveyard effect decks like Mermail do give your deck a problem, so you summon a Banisher, it basically locks them all out. When I play this deck, you know, and I side Banishes in against PK Fire, I side them in against, you know, BA, obviously, against Mermail, against Dark World, all that stuff, so. Okay, another thing. Staple, you need to play another copy of a different barrier statue in your side deck. Let's say you have three Earth and like 1 water in there. Oh no, I'm playing, Earths and I run into Fluffles. Okay, well, great. Or no, maybe Fluffles weren't the best example. We'll roll with it. We'll say you're playing 3 waters, and then you play against Mermel. Okay, you side out your 3 waters, you side in your 3 fires, and then game 2, you have 7 live statues again. You need another copy of a different barrier statue that you're not playing in the main deck in your side deck to prepare yourself for other potential matchups. You need to, need to, need to, need to. That is mandatory. So you got Consecrated Light. This is, again, it's my own flavor choice. I love Consecrated Light. it's just that troll card. You know what I mean? That's like, if you don't open a statue, you can just summon Consecrated Light against like BA, Dark World, PK Fire, all that good stuff, and they basically lose. Grand Mole. Grand Mole helps. I'm not gonna say break first turn fields, but it helps to get over first turn fields. So I could understand if you wanted to play it. MST, obvious. I wouldn't play Twin Twister in here. I don't like Twin Twister in this deck. I don't like pitching a card out of my hand. I like to keep all 5 or 6 of my other cards in my hand so I can try and make as strong of a first turn field or second turn field as I can out of it. So I would play MST, just stop Decree, stop, Fog Blade, all that stuff. Book of Eclipse. Again, not bad at getting rid of first turn fields. You Book of Eclipse something, and then, or let's say it's a once per turn effect, like, what was it? Like Hope Harbinger, and your opponent goes first, makes Hope Harbinger. You can like Book of Eclipse. They have to negate it, obviously, and then you like Moon Mirror Shield or Raigeki over it. Stuff like that. Darkhold and Raigeki, again, break first turn fields. You side it whenever you're going second. You side it out when you're going first, obvious. You got Master Restrict in here. Master Restrict to stop Magispector and to stop Monarchs because those are your worst matchups. So why not, get a card that breaks both of them. Strike. I put it in the side deck, because... Like, here's the thing. I think Strike in the main deck is trash, because the only matchup where Strike is even remotely good in Barrier Statues is, I'm not even going to call it Cyber Angels, because all it is Herald 2.0. It's only good against Herald. You know what I mean? You play a card, they try to Herald it, you strike it, and game over, basically. And that's only if you're going second against Herald. If you go first against Herald, you summon a statue, they lose. You know what I mean? Like, they can't do anything. They can summon Manju Senju, but if you summon a barrier statue and you don't have any protection against a fucking Manju or Sanju, you're probably going to lose no matter what. So I put Strike in the side deck, but if Herald leaves the meta pretty much at any point, I would not touch Strike. I think Strike is a terrible card in this deck, like I said, again, except against Herald, because the only cards that hurt the barrier statue strategy that people even remotely play are Cosmo Good Witch, which a lot of people don't really play them. Like I only remember the last time I've seen that card. Maybe people still play it. I've just been lucky and haven't seen it, but for the most part, I haven't seen it. Cosmo Good Witch and Burning Abyss Farfa and Fogblade. But obviously Strike doesn't stop Fogblade. But all 3 of those cards that I mentioned, literally summoning a second barrier statue prevents any of those from doing anything. Because obviously you Farfa 1 monster, you still have another statue, you still lock them out. You have Cosmo Good Witch, you Book of Moon 1 monster, you still got another monster in play, you still can't special summon. You know what I mean? Summoning a second barrier statue completely renders all of those cards moot, so I'd rather just put more damage on board rather than playing a card that's extremely suboptimal. So, I don't think Strike is a good idea in this deck at all. The only reason why I would even side it would be for Herald, and that's literally it. Vanity's Emptiness basically serves as another statue. If your opponent, finally, like they top deck Raigeki and they Raigeki you, and I don't know how you don't have an answer to Raigeki. You got 3 of that, 2 of that, 3 of that. I play Lance in my main deck, you know what I mean? I play 3 copies of Lance on my main deck. So, but like, let's say hypothetically, you lose your barrier statue. Okay, on resolution, when your barrier statue hits the grave and your other opponent's cards hit the grave, you flip Vanities and see if you can lock them out that way, at least for the turn, until you get another statue set up. Which does work a lot. It basically counts as another copy of Lance when you think about it. So Vanity's Emptiness, not bad. And then the last card I have in here is Soul Drain, because there are those graveyard effects, like Burning Abyss Farfa, and then the other random shit like Shadal Dragon that kind of, I'm not going to say it hurts you per se, but it can be annoying, it can hurt you. So Soul Drain's not a bad option. If you go against Dark World and you flip Soul Drain so they can't graph any of your monsters, then you're pretty much in good shape. But like I said, graph isn't too big of a deal, which is why I don't currently play Soul Drain, but I could see it being played if we go back to a graveyard format. So yeah, you guys, that is my do's and do nots of barrier statues. If you want more information or more, tips on how to play the deck, like, leave a comment, go watch my other videos, see if they help you. I've had a lot of subs message me recently saying they want to try the deck out. I highly recommend it, especially right now. I feel like it's the right format for it. It's a $10 deck to make. It's extremely budget, won't hurt your wallet at all to make, and it's a hell of a lot of fun to play, and it's very effective against the meta. Like I said, in my opinion, right now, this very second, it's the best anti-meta deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.